Hi, my name is Saul. I'm going to be refuting the claim that nuclear power is the most efficient way to produce electricity. My opponent's secondary claims were nuclear power produces minimal waste, the cost of uranium, the fuel for nuclear reactions, is low compared to other fuels. Not only is uranium, the third claim is, not only is uranium cheaper than coal or natural gas, the amount of electricity produced per unit of fuel is much higher for nuclear power than other forms of electricity production. My response to the first claim is that nuclear power actually does produce a significant amount of radioactive waste. Such kind of waste emits radiation from tens to hundreds of years. The opponent had a quote that read, "If you got all the electricity you use in your lifetime from nuclear power, your total share of waste would weigh 2 pounds. But the space the waste occupies is not what should concern us. It should be the harm that the waste can cause to anyone around it." Helen Caldicott, a renowned anti-nuclear advocate, said an average nuclear power plant generates 30 tons of nuclear waste annually and is not properly stored away in many locations and is leaking into bodies of water. Not only does nuclear energy produce radioactive waste, but it also produces waste when obtaining the uranium in order to power the nuclear plant. Open pit mining, which is a method of obtaining uranium, generates 40 tons of waste for every ton of uranium ore obtained. The radioactive waste emits radon gas that can cause lung cancer if it were to be inhaled. And the seepage, which is basically what the leftover after they're done mining for ore, also contains traces of uranium, heavy metals, and acid. These radioactive particles can end up in waterways and travel to other bodies of water. My response to secondary claim that the cost of uranium, the fuel for nuclear reactions, is low compared to other fuels. The second claim did not have sufficient evidence. Only one piece of evidence was provided. Additional statistics and numerical evidence would have helped support the claim further and convince the audience. According to a study recently conducted by NCWARN, which is a member-based nonprofit nuclear and climate change watchdog group, the cost of building a nuclear power station has increased over time, and as the cost of solar plants are decreasing. So their study conducted in July 2010 shows that the cost of solar energy has dropped down to 15.9 kilowatts an hour as opposed to 20 kilowatts an hour at a plant site before transmission charges. My response to the third claim, within the third claim for evidence, my opponent cited that no nuclear power plants have been created since 1996, and that this information demonstrates how little money has been invested into plants. But the reason for why nuclear plants have not been created in the last 19 years, according to Nuclear News, is because of the lack of public support for the creation of a new power plant. Basically, people are very afraid of anything going wrong with a new nuclear plant, and that's why they don't support any new nuclear plants being created. Such accidents are like the incident in Chernobyl, Fukushima, and 3 Mile Island are three of the main accidents that have brought fear to many people, much of the public, and is the reason why many people don't push for a new nuclear power plant to be created. Thank you.
All right, well, the argument on waste at the beginning, I think, is pretty effective. This is actually the strongest argument that you have because you document how much waste would be produced by a plant. You document that the waste presents a particular threat to the environment. It's dangerous in some ways, that the mill tailings and other residue from mining the uranium is also problematic. So I think you've got a good argument here on why there are problems or reservations with nuclear power that have to do with the waste issue. And so that, I think, clearly contradicts and at least argues the point that the advocate was making on that particular point. On the cost issue, you basically challenged the sufficiency of the evidence. I think that's a reasonable challenge, but your argument needs a little bit more follow-up. You've got a very generic piece of evidence as the cost of nuclear power plants has gone up as the cost of solar has been going down, but we still don't know, are those competitive costs? For example, you say the solar is now at 15.9 kilowatts versus the 20 kilowatts that it once was. Okay, and I don't know how that's a measurement of cost. It sounds like a measurement of output. But if it is a measurement of cost, how am I supposed to compare it to nuclear power? I don't get any nuclear statistics based on kilowatt hours, so I can't really tell whether or not they are comparable in that situation. Gesundheit. On the third point, I think you basically have a reasonable challenge here that says that the reason that these power plants haven't been built is because of the public's fear of the safety of those plants. I think that that's a legitimate claim. And you've got 3 examples that would suggest why there is that potential risk. But again, most of that is an assertion on your part, and there's not really much development of that argument. It's just, you say that people are paranoid about it, but I don't see any public opinion polls that address that issue. I don't hear any individual who's willing to make that statement and be considered an expert on that particular source. The examples that you use, there's no doubt that those examples exist, but it's not that whether or not the examples exist, it's whether or not people become gun-shy of nuclear power as a result of the examples that you cite, and that's the thing that I think is missing on that point.